7:51. I just woke up and I've been wanting to stream from this moment for a few days now. And basically, what will happen is I'll wake up, I'll start doing all this different stuff, and I'll be like, man, I wish I was streaming. And I'll just think to myself, I was like, man, I wish I started streaming from the moment I woke up. And then I'll just be like, well, you know what I'll do? I'll stream from the moment I wake up in tomorrow or the next day because today isn't really isn't really the best day because one I'm already up and I'm already in the middle of doing all this stuff, but two, because like this isn't really ready, or this I'm not ready for this, or I got to do this. A lot of times in the morning when I have to run, when I anticipate running, I'm just like, all right, well, I'll stream on another day when when I can kind of like wrap my mind around how am I supposed to run and then stream at the same time. So like things like this will happen, and I'll just push it off to the next day. And then like this morning, it'll come around, and then I'll just be sitting there and I'll just be like, all right, let me go ahead and stream. Then I'll be like, well, all right, what am I gonna stream for? And I'll be sitting there talking myself out of it. Like, what's so special about today? You know, what's gonna, maybe I should make a video, maybe I should this, and I'll start just going through my whole entire mental process of like, I have all these video notes, let me go ahead and make a video. Or I'll go through the mentality of like, oh, here I am in my house again. I should be doing something, you know, more exciting. Just a second ago, I was like, oh, what about my brand? All this like immediate stuff. This stuff that's like so in the immediate. And in reality, it's like I have a whole entire channel and I can do whatever it is that I want to do. I can do whatever it is I think that I can create, and that's ultimately what my objective is. It's just something about this process. Maybe it has to do with the fact of all these years I've been on YouTube and like my channel has never really grown. I think maybe that might have something to do with it. I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact of, I don't really get a lot of comments and stuff. So I just think that maybe because my return is so low, I think sometimes it can kind of like lead to me holding back. I mean, I know for a fact it leads to me holding back a lot when it comes to these things. But it's just like here I am, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and do this today. I'm gonna do this today for a few reasons. One, I've always want to do this. Two, this is like just one of the best things I can do for my social skills. This really helps me out a lot when it comes to social skills. And then three, it really gives me something to criticize and something to continue to build from. I have a lot of like things like this that episodes that I've done like this. I had this other series, I called it New Day, New Way, and I just realized that it's time for me to just kind of be more like one to one, if that makes any sense at all, with the way I title my streams. Like to call my stream New Day, New Way, I mean, it just was cool for what it was. And like now, I think I just want to just call it something else. But anyways, long story short, this really gives me something to like work from, and I have material like this, and this really does a lot for me in terms of my social skills. Um, and it just really helps me exercise my social skills. And it really, along with that though, like I said, it really helps me get my ideas out there because I have like all these ideas in my mind, and I'll just be thinking about this stuff, and I'll be like, you know, I like to talk about this, or I'll think through this subject in my mind, and it'll just kind of be there. So like when I stream, I also have that, but so yeah, I mean, it just does a lot of different things for me, and when I think about this stream or whatever, or when I like lately when I've been thinking about this, my object, what I really wanted to do is like start streaming from the moment I woke up, and I want to like clean, talk about different things. Like I have some video notes that I kind of like have spoken on, like I've kind of skimmed through during these streams, and I just want to go through them, maybe talk about some of them, and there's that. I want to talk about not just that, but there. I want to talk about like current events, and basically, one big like overarching like theme of this is it's really like me kind of more or less like hanging out by myself. I know it sounds so lame. It sounds so kind of like look at this sap, like that's not what I want it to be, but in reality it's I'll just be honest, like 20% of this is like me hanging out by myself, but truly speaking, this is really something that I really need to do. And I also want to use this time to like somewhat like reevaluate with things, and kind of like just speak on things that are kind of like on my mind, like what am I really more or less doing right now, like what are my objectives, always got to really like touch down with those just to always kind of like center a little bit. And then so yeah, having this, it gives me something that I can look at, criticize for myself, come to a determination about. Like one thing that I'm sort of at this point with too is like wearing a hood, believe it or not, wearing a hood. And I just want to kind of get to a point where kind of somewhat, somewhat kind of not really. I mean, I kind of like, to be honest, I actually really like wearing a hood. I just recognize that I've just been wearing a hood like all the time for a really long time now, and I kind of at the point where I kind of look at it like there are people that wear hats, when their hair starts to thin out, and they always wear hats, and I just kind of look at it like, okay, well, I can kind of like always wear a hood, but at the same time, it's like I really don't have to, so I just kind of want to be like, you know, the only thing about it is, in order for me to like relax like that right now, I have to have my hair cut. Another thing about these videos is they give me an opportunity to talk a lot, which really helps me work on my dialect. So this way I can kind of like streamline like my speech, because what will happen is if I don't talk for a really long time, my speech will become very rudimentary and very awkward. And this is just because I just don't have like the vocal practice, and I just get cold and rusty, believe it or not. And it's wild because in my mind, I'll still think in a very fluid way, but the actual act of like speaking in real time, it does not instantly translate well if I don't have a lot of experience. And so these videos really help me with that. And I also use these videos, like I said, to reevaluate, but also to to really like just really like refine my thoughts, because like I said, it gives me the opportunity to like speak things and speak through ideas, and then by speaking through ideas, I'm more so able to like materialize them in thought, and I can cross analyze them afterwards. So I know that sounds like a whole bunch of like super analysis and like whatever, and it sounds like a lot, but I figure at the end of the day, if I'm the one that's watching this and this is primarily for me in a lot of ways, then it's just kind of like this is a good exercise for me, because it gives me the opportunity to kind of like hear like certain things for whatever it's worth. I feel like other people usually would have like friends or like someone or people that they're able to talk to. I don't have that. So I have to do this. And it's not a matter of, feeling sorry for myself or anything like that. It's just a matter of this really works in this situation. And along with that, I kind of want to talk about that. I want to talk about like my outlook on like dating and like my thoughts on it. I want to talk about my outlook on friendship, my thoughts on it. Talk about my outlook on employment, my thoughts on that. And I just want to be able to do it in like a really relaxed setting where I'm just, just running around doing my thing. It's interesting because like this tablet, what happens when I make these streams is it really feels like a person, kind of. In term But like it feels like a person in how it kind of like makes me think about what I say, and like and it makes me like take my thoughts and my speech through it puts me in a situation where I have to take my thoughts and my speech and put it through like a conscious filter. And I realized that that process can be like really like congested. And that's what's good about this process, is it really helps me get through that. Like if I didn't have this, I don't know what I would do, you know. And I think that my social skills would really deteriorate. It really reminds me of like there'd be times when like growing up, I had friends that like didn't really um, socialize at all, or socialize to a point where I would think they was healthy. I always felt like it was unhealthy how little they socialized. And when I would socialize with them, I noticed that like the some of my friends that really lived like more like hermit of a hermit life. One, they were very soft spoken, where like their words were like very soft, which I thought was really interesting. But then two, I also noticed that a lot of times their speech would be fragmented. It would lack texture. Uh, it would lack flow. It would be kind of rudimentary and awkward. And I don't think it was for any reason other than one, I know for a fact that the person's, their stimulants and the way that they receive information, you know, was probably, being they were on a different frequency due to the lack of socialization. So I know that there's that, but then I also know from like my experience with this that it's just like when you don't really socialize a lot, you just don't get the practice, to really get to really to really be strong, to really comfortably speak, and not just to comfortably speak, but like just to be like more effortlessly like engaged, like for whatever it's worth, something like that. And one thing about social skills is like it's like on one hand you could be like, oh, what difference does it make? But the reality of it is, there are going to be situations in life where you communicate with people, and the better your social skills are, the better it is for you to get to that communication. And it can really be underestimated how valuable that is, because it's like on the surface level, if it's like, oh, you're better at social skills, therefore you had a better communication or whatever. So it's like, oh, what difference did that make? The thing about it is, it's like you can sit there and undermine it, but the reality of the situation is that reality throws things at you and angles and ways that you can't anticipate. You can't practically think to yourself that, okay, in 3 weeks, there's going to be a situation where you know you end up losing something, and you have to ask a person for help. And so your ability to communicate with them is going to be your ability to really get your point across. Maybe there may be a time where um Mook, for example, you end up speaking with another dog owner, about something like that. Maybe someone asks you for help. They ask you for directions. How do I get to this place? You'd be surprised how frequently, like, you could be, or at least from how frequently you can be just like seriously in thought. Then someone asks you some question, and like you just like totally out of sorts, and you don't even really know how to process it within a short period of time. These things can really happen when your social skills dwindle if you go for long periods of time. I just realized that, like, certain social engagements, like, you would think that you would be able to anticipate social engagements, or you would think that there would be like a momentous flow to social engagements, to where it's like, where when you start really like engaging people often, then you'll be like in all these different social engagements that you're like, you know, primed for, because it's just the flow of your life. But like, you underestimate the times when it's like things aren't really flowing in your life, and then next thing you know, you find yourself dealing with like serious communication for whatever it's worth. I mean, there's so many different reasons of communicating with someone, even, and really a lot of this comes in handy too when it comes to small talk. Believe it or not, small talk really blows my mind. Like, I'll be honest, small talk is actually a prime example of like, when you have poor social skills, how it really hurts you. Because in small talk you could be propositioned with a question, or you could be propositioned with some sort of idea, and it just be like really on the fly or in passing, and like you really just don't know how to answer it a lot of times. And when you're able to like really improve your social skills, you're able to have like better engagements like that. You're also better able to communicate with people when you don't really have any common ground. You're able to find uh, some level of like comforting conversation, to where you can actually like establish, actual dialogue or whatever it is. It's just not having social skills is like not having some sort of like sense, or like basic ability, like the ability to like smell, or the ability to hear, the ability to taste. These are like senses. It's almost like not having one of those core senses in a while. Or better yet, not being able to socialize is like being like disabled or handicapped to some capacity. And I just realized that through years of like being in the street and being homeless, and like only really being able to talk to like an employee, or only really being able to talk to like, someone else that would like, people with like mental disorders and stuff like that, especially like living in the street and going into like food kitchens, and like just managing to like just thrive or survive, whatever you want to call it. Like me running around with Mook and stuff like that. Just so many, just like living that way for years, it really adds up. And it's and I never thought that it would have affected me the way that it did. It's something that looking at it overall, it can be really underestimated, about like how much like your social skills really get lost when you are living like on your own, more or less, somewhat, however, you know So yeah, these videos do that, and they give me a real good, a cool premise to talk about things like dating and stuff like that. Like I can't particularly say I'm at a stage right now where I really like want to make videos about like dating and stuff because I haven't really like laid out like my sort of mentality and philosophy. But I'm actually gonna um really consider talking about that. At the same time, I'm also what this tablet does though is it also helps me with most immediate when you're in your more most immediate mind and you're just constantly acting and reacting the action reaction part of your brain by having a mess. I think it like what it does is it may like short circuit your encouragement to like act, you know. So what I noticed is that when my space is like clean, not only am I able to think better, but I'm able to like take action because I have a clearer state of mind. And so this is what this does. It's a really good habit, and it's a really beneficial process. There are a lot of things I have to do that like when I think of them up front, they're very overwhelming. But I realize that when I do things like this, they're less overwhelming, and my ability to take action on them is not as I feel less resistance taking action on them when I have a clean space. When I have and I feel like having a clean space gives me a positive place to really like reflect from. Another thing is I love this backpack, so put that right there. But yeah, being in Virginia and not like doing what everyone's doing, it really takes you out of sync with the immediate environment. And for that reason, the life that Virginia has to offer, like the best life that Virginia has to offer you, unless you're doing that, it's just very hard to realize. One thing, um, one thing that you do realize. So yeah, employment in Virginia. So yeah, I mean it's just really harsh. It's really harsh to like be in Virginia. Like I mean, aside from like the summer, like see in the summer there appears to be this spike of vibrance, but what that really is that is that is summer break. And see what that is that's the other side of Virginia, the other work culture of Virginia, to where it's like in Virginia you can have a job like that or you can go to school. And those are like the two big things, the two big um I don't want to call them life paths. I don't know exactly how to explain them, but those are like the two sort of like ways of life in Virginia. You either are working or you're going to school. Other than that, Virginia doesn't have it can't really compete with other states when it comes to like vibrance and quality of life, unfortunately. But what Virginia does have is it has stability more so across the land, whereas in other states they don't have that. A lot of states are very volatile, where some people will have a lot of states will be like only a few people have stuff. Like, whereas in Virginia, most people have things because there's always a job. You know, it's like whereas in other states, there are a lot of states where a lot of people don't have a lot because there's just not a lot going on. You know, there's you in other states you sit there, you try to work at like a restaurant, like they looking at that like that's like almost like a career. Like they like they really take it serious. Like not even just like taking it serious, but like it's just like a really big deal. Like whereas like in Virginia, you get a job at a restaurant, it's not necessarily that it's any less of a big deal. It's just understood that you're not going to really be able to make enough money to really sort of like, unless you're like an exceptional waiter or something like that. But it's not like the same to where like in some of these states where these people are where homelessness is like more like ravishing, like for like in LA and stuff like that. It's like you get a job as a waiter, they're like, that's like a job. Like, I just find it just extremely difficult to like find employment in other states compared to Virginia. Virginia, like if a person can't get a job in Virginia, like then they're probably in the wrong field or something like that. Because if there's any place that has jobs, it's Virginia. But it's so much that so that to where if you're not like working a job, it's like for you to find fulfillment in life, it's just sad. And it's sad because I know for a fact it wasn't always like this. I know for a fact, like when I was growing up, like in the night, like in throughout the '90s, and you know, it just the cost of living. It wasn't like like you were able to afford more, like doing regular jobs. Like it got to the point where when I like finally started like around the time when my like generation started like transitioning into like adulthood, that was when all of a sudden the cost of living just got so astronomical and out of this world. It just seemed like you had to have a stronger and stronger education. It was like I remember like when I first um like dropped out of high school, as much as I don't like to say it, um at that time you didn't need a high school education in order to have like a roof over your head. So it was more like college was more of an option. Then it was just like once I graduated from college, it was like college was like mandatory. And then now it's like even if you graduate from college, like you need to be like strongly like employed if you expect to like have like one like just a regular job that you just worked the good old fashioned way through. You gotta really be like set, you know, in your, you know, in what your field is, or you have to have some sort of wealth, like some sort of background and stability in order to make it through those moments when you don't have that, you know, super strong occupation. I mean, it's just like you got to realize there were times when people could work at a fast food spot and have enough money to pay rent. I, I I don't doubt that there are people that are able to work in a fast food spot and have enough money to pay rent. The only thing about it is I doubt that there are entry level people that are able to work in fast food spots and be able to pay rent. Nobody is just going for the first time in their life, you know, working for like, you know, Taco Bell and then having enough money for a house, having enough money for in a one bedroom apartment on their own, having enough money to do anything other than live in absolute poverty. It's like that's what they're sort of struck with. And it's interesting too, because in this time, they got it to where they're doing AI for these things. So now, like I said, the ceiling for these teetering, you know, basic occupations is so high right now. And what I mean by teetering basic occupations, I mean like ways for you to make a living without like being some sort of expert or like being some sort of like, you know, just being able just to make it a good old fashioned in the literal sense of living. Now, one thing I want to touch base on is my laptop. All right. I'm going to get back to that. But look, this is my laptop. And when I tell you that I love this laptop, I really mean it. It is. So here's the thing, I've had a ThinkPad. So to say that this is like the best laptop I've ever had, but an argument could be made. This is the best laptop I've ever had. I'm just so happy with the chassis. I'm so happy with the build quality. I'm so happy with the functionality, and I'm so happy with it that I wanted to do a review of it. I wanted to do a review of it. This is a gaming laptop. But see, the thing about it is, look at this. I'm so happy with it that I want to do a review of it. But see, the thing about it is, I don't think it's likely that I'm going to do like a review of it because there's so many situations like this in the past where I've had things and I've just been like, yo, I need to review this because I love this thing so much. But when I tell you I love this laptop, I really do. It's an Asus Zephyrus, and I never thought I would use an Asus because I always thought that I would just be more into like I never thought that they would actually. I always thought I never thought I would use an Asus. Here's the back end. Look at these indicators. But I never knew that they would produce such a streamlined, high quality built gaming. Like I never thought they would be the ones to make this laptop. I always thought Lenovo would be the ones to make the laptop, or they would keep making MacBook Airs like this that just didn't have, that were just like priced at this weird point and always had questionable performance. I always thought that would be the case. I never thought that Asus of all would make a gaming laptop that was just so stealthy and like premium and just no compromises in so many areas and just high performing. I never thought. And so I love this laptop a lot. And so that's why I want to just take a little second just to speak on it. Just a little second just to speak on it. It does this. This is the only thing about it that's flashy. Now here's the thing: they have two models of this laptop. They have the more traditional gaming form factor, which has more power, and then they have this streamlined, less modular form factor, which basically just has this very slow stealthy. I love how thin it is. Love how thin it is. Really thin, just high quality gaming laptop, and to where the only thing that even says gaming is this little stream right here, this little streak. And honestly, I can turn it off. I really wish that its functionality was a little bit more. I just wish that the functionality of this stream of this strip was a little bit more intricate. Like I wish there was more intricacies to this. Like I wish this really meant more than okay. I get that it's charging, but like if I'm at 100%, if this was like 100%, and it would just sit there like that, maybe that could be something to where like when it's not on battery, this could give me like my battery power indicator. And I know that if I really like try to like I don't know, I'm pretty sure if I mean I just wish this could be like a battery indicator, or this could be just something other than just like a strobing light, just to like let everyone know I got the yeah, you know that laptop, I got that one. Like I don't, you know what I mean? Like it has that going for it, but I really appreciate how for a gaming laptop, this is the only thing it has going for it. I really appreciate how it doesn't have, you know, too how it's not like too like illuminated and just screaming this is gaming, because I kind of feel like the real appeal to a gaming laptop is the ability that you can kind of take it, the portability of it. It's just when something becomes more visible, it's not that it's any less portable, it's just less stealthy. You know, it attracts more attention. It's like you just kind of want to have that minimal when it comes to a gaming laptop, you just want power, you know, but you want it as minimal as possible if you're going to especially be somewhere in public. And then I don't know, just with it being like the primary device, it's just so nice knowing that all the power you need or everything you need is just in this, you know, and it's not in some like strobing station. Now, to be fair, I would not mind if this, for example, was like an LED strip that had like different colors so that it would have sort of that underglow body kit effect. You know, I think that would be a nice touch, but but as long as whatever the RGBs or whatever, as long as they don't take away from this minimal, stealthy, high quality form factor. That's the only thing. It just has to just leave that alone. As long as that's done, they could do whatever. Even if they were to have some wild strip across the front like they do on the more gaming design model that had, you know, a constant light going, like that's one thing. But like I said, that those abilities, I really would have liked that more or less translated in this, you know? And even if that was like right there, that would be kind of cool. But like if it was just more intricate to where maybe it meant something. Like I get that the pulsing means that it's charging, but like anyways, I'm not gonna sit here and ramble on this too much. I just wanted to give this a little segment. Just like I always want to give I always like giving my phone little segments because there's certain things that I'm just so proud of and happy with that I just feel like they should just be mentioned, especially when it comes to like hardware and technology. There just been so many times in my life where I've had certain things and I never really gave them the proper appreciation. And it's like they came and they went. And it's just like certain things, like for example, I had like a note, you know, a note 10 or something like that. And I never spoke about my note 10. You know, I never spoke about my S24 Ultra Plus. I never spoke about, you know, if I never had a Samsung watch, but like for example, if I had a Samsung watch, I thought it was amazing. I never spoke about that. I also got these headphones, these Beats Studio 3s. I think they're the greatest headphones ever invented. And I've gone through so many pairs of Beats and I never talk about them. So I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and just say something about this laptop real quick and just get it out of the way. But yeah, Virginia ain't working. Yo, I'm gonna speak on my phone a little bit, but like my phone and this in my backpack, like this backpack, I love this backpack so much. See, here's another thing too. In the past, I've had backpacks that I was just, you know, I love so much, and I never spoke about them. And I just wish I did because if anything, I would have at least had a video of them so I could have been like, so I could always just like remember like having it, you know? But it's like because I don't have a video, it's like these things, you know, they come, they go, they perish, unfortunately. And then it's just like when it's all said and done, you just think about them and you're just like, man, that was great. And then it's just like, dang, I don't have anything to show for it. So, anyways, this is my backpack and I really like it a lot. So I give these things sometimes in these videos, you know. Love this backpack. It's a clear it's basically a clear JanSport. It's a clear JanSport. It's not actually JanSport. It's from Amazon. You know, it's one. You know, it's Amazon, but it's built exactly like a JanSport backpack, which is perfect because it has a JanSport form factor. When it comes to backpacks, I really feel like the JanSport form factor is the best. It's just something that I feel like they really perfected, and this is clear. And not only is it clear, but it's also tinted. See, there are things that are clear and they're not tinted, and they look totally different. They don't look as high quality. You know, I'm just be honest. They don't look as high quality. So I love how this thing is clear. One thing that's kind of cool about it being clear is like when you're a traveler and stuff like that. I mean, having clear stuff is as cool as a traveler. But this is kind of you don't really realize how. I mean, there's just so many different aspects of clear that are really cool. And for the sake of this video, since I'm gonna talk about these politics, we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use one of these like news videos. So look, this is like this. I forgot I got this little. Anyways, this is the cool part. See what I'm saying? And so it's just kind of cool because I don't know. I mean, just I don't know what it is about a clear backpack. I remember when I was homeless recently, when I was living on the street during the pandemic. I remember I started noticing like the production of these backpacks, and I just remember I was trying to get a backpack, and I found a clear one, but it wasn't really big, and I really didn't have enough. I had to make a real budget decision, and like I didn't buy it, and I was one of those things where I kind of went back to the store hoping that they would have had it, and I could never find it, and so about roughly a year and a half later, I get to the point where I finally get to the point where I can order something from Amazon, and this is what I got. And last but not least, my phone. This is an iPhone 13 mini. And it's just one of these things that I really like a lot because here's the situation. I think everyone is done with phone, new phone, upgrade, hype, whatever you want to call it when it comes to this at this point. If you've had a new iPhone enough times, you know what it's like. Where we're at with technology, I don't really see anything on the horizon that particularly for me is going to be a make or break. And so I kind of set my eyes on this form factor, realizing that this is like coming to the belief or like just whatever, that this is like the perfect phone. It may not be bezel to bezel. That may be something that could happen in the future. But with this phone, I don't mind that I don't have the latest and greatest iPhone. This is more than enough. And it's a mini, which makes it this perfect form factor. And I was just thinking a while ago that I think it's wild because like I've never dropped this phone once. That I can, I think I might have dropped it once. So I just want to give my phone a little moment. Anyways. I'm really happy with my phone. I'm really happy with my laptop. These headphones, this is prime example. Like these headphones right here. These headphones, I've had them for almost 2 years. and they're breaking down now. And I haven't done one review, but I think they're like the greatest headphones in the world. I wear these all the time. Even the brown. And so yeah, this has been my little look right here. And I'll be honest, I like it. I really feel comfortable like this. But anyways, I got to cut my hair today. So I'm going to be working on this look. I'm going to be cleaning this up. This is also another reason. This is the reason why I really wear the hood. Is like now the interesting thing about my hair thinning is like growing up, I always kept my hair like super short. So it's like now that my hair is thinning, it's like I feel like I want to keep it longer for whatever reason. But it's almost like I don't cut my hair nearly as much. It's like I feel as though if I cut my hair more, it makes the thinning. I don't even know if I can't say if it makes it worse or I just feel less. I don't know. Maybe it's probably because I don't go to work every day or something. But I'm just kind of at this point where it's like I like cutting my hair because of how much better it looks, but I feel as though I don't cut my hair nearly as much, and because I'm trying to like keep my hair, keep the hair that I have. Like it's like I don't want to lose my hair, so like I'm like not cutting it. Whereas before I had before I started thinning, I didn't. I always cut my hair. Like I kept it like buzzed to a minimum. So I'm kind of like in this little sort of paradox of like coming to terms with like how I'm supposed to keep my hair maintained. There's that, and there's also the fact of in my beard, there were a lot of there were a lot of like bacteria, like blackheads, ingrowns, all this stuff that is sort of compiled from me being in the street. So I've really been like shaving a lot less. Like my face really rebounded a lot from being in the street and sleeping outdoors. And I just didn't want like I let my skin just relax and stuff like that, and so it prevents me from having to deal with like a whole bunch of like skin damage, random skin damage, and breakouts. So I've been like leaving my hair alone, but like I'm kind of at this stage now where it's like I can go back to cutting it. So as much as I enjoy this all the time, like I like this look. I like the way it feels. Really based on the way that I live and like what how much I listen to music and stuff like that. This is pretty much what I do, but at the same time, I don't want it to be like this weird like character defining sort of like attribute that we have managed to hold on to it throughout different times in our life. Like sometimes if we get in the habit of like wearing let's say for example we attribute like a certain clothing line to our character, so it's like, oh, if I don't have you know the old navy sweatshirt, then I ain't really, being who I am and stuff like that. Like, you don't want to get yourself in that situation. And I don't want to get myself in that mentality when it comes like wearing a hood. Like, oh, if I'm not wearing a hood, like, I want to still sustain my versatility. I don't want to be like out of comfort when I'm dressed differently. I want to work on all my appearances, you know? So, anyways, that's what's going on with this. But yeah, Virginia and working. And it's wild the way that work hits you in Virginia because it'll be one moment, you'll be in your 20s and all your friends and stuff that you grew up with, like you think to yourself like that. I don't know, you'll just get this idea that you're just kind of like building your life the way that you would like it to be. And what will happen is the people around you will slowly start falling into being normal like everybody else. And it's almost like the walls cave in on you from the outside, and you'll just find that your groups will start to dwindle, and things will slowly start to change, and they'll become more unified with like the world. And I think something happens to where it's like what once was like normal for you, like like your high quality of life, it's almost like, or like your social life, it's like in order to sustain it in adulthood, you have to have more. I don't know if it's money or wealth or something, but you just need to have more of that. And it's like not being able to put a roof over your head really hurts that. And that's what really brings the vibrance of an individual's life and their friends and their community to an end. And that's something that takes place in Virginia just as effectively, because you got to pay bills. So you got to keep a roof over your head. It'd be one thing if you knew people that were like quote unquote cool and they were able to keep a roof over their head and be cool. But what you realize is you don't know too many people that are able to do both. You don't know too many people that are cool and also can afford to keep a roof over their head. So what happens is, I think a real like fashionable way to put it is like you gotta really boss up. You gotta boss up before you kind of more or less realize it, because because everything else is just really cut short. You just gotta boss up. There's no way for you to really stay under the to live like. There's no way to really live like average in Virginia and think that you're gonna have a, a quality of life full of like fun and stuff like that outside of like you're the relationship that you build in like in high school. And it's also for that reason that like you got to go to school or go to work. And so at work is like, and so you live, so your life is a byproduct of this because you're either in school or work, is the social life that you construct in association with those things. And if you don't do those things, then you're just not going to have a life, because there's no pathway to you having a life other than going to school or working in Virginia. Because there's just no, it's not easy. You still gotta be in these little in these little spaces in order to in order to prosper. Now, here's a big problem with this. These spaces, I mean, they only accept certain types of people. They only accept people that are in that sort of spirit of working and like going to school. Like those are the people that really thrive in those environments. People that are into sort of getting in that sort of in that line of, okay, I'm gonna get a promotion. I'm just gonna keep doing this. I'll get a promotion. Okay, I'm gonna overachieve. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this to achieve. And like they'll be comfortable living in that sort of cookie cutter um, existence. But like if you want to like, for example, like me personally, when I was a kid, I used to do things like build like bamboo forts, and like me and my friends, we go out to the fort and like we would strategize whatever it is from like the fort, and we would like go and get like furniture, put it in there. We would get books, all sorts of like fireworks, whatever, secret stuff that we had. We put it in there. This is what I did as a kid. So it's like as an adult, it's like, how can you do this? Like, what is the equivalent of this? And so that's kind of more or less what you do. You don't just go to some sort of 9 to 5 and get like a portion, a ration from the sacrifice of your time just to go home and do it all again. It's not to say that you're like above whatever. It's just to say that that equivalent in an adulthood is like the equivalent of like just going to school and doing homework. And it's just like, if that's not what you were as a child, then that's not who you are as an adult. And so it's like trying to continue through that arc of life is very difficult in Virginia. It's just a little bit too radical for the sort of like high governed formality of surviving in Virginia, I think is a better way to put it. It's like Virginia has everything for a worker. It's just as a kid, you just come to realize that that's what Virginia is about. It's really about work, and it's like these jobs aren't paying, and it's like these jobs aren't paying one because it's like that's how lame it's become. That's how how ruined a lot of aspects of the system are. But then you also realize that they're not paying because because the culture just isn't the same. It's like these people that always follow the rules all their life. It's just not the same as Virginia. Virginia is right outside of Washington D.C., which basically is what it supplies. Just like Maryland, it's just a big workplace, and they fulfill government contracts, and through that, people are able to get to create a or people are able to have a they're able to their pay is designed alongside the cost of living. So their ability to thrive is calculated in their employment. Whereas like in the rest of the world, it doesn't exactly work that way. However, in the rest of the world, you don't exactly need that in order to get over. But at the same time, the way that it's set up now, they're kind of like relentless with it. Like I think a lot of this has to do with the fact of people being able to work digitally and work from like different locations and being able to move to different states and take advantage of lower cost of living. I think for that reason, the overall cost of living has I don't know if it's the term is equalized or whatever it is, but it's just balanced out to where no matter where you're at, for you to be able to afford like a car and like a cost of living, you got to be able to get paid more than right now. The number they're saying is 70K. So it's like, what can you do for more than 70K? What can you realistically do? Because when I was in college, I mean, there were things that I did that people could not do, and the thing was, I didn't do it. Like I say that to say, like a lot of people dropped out of the college that I went to, And the college I went to wasn't even considered to be like the most prestigious or whatever. But the thing about it is, a lot of things that I had to do, like in the way that I had to do them, most people couldn't do them. So how does that translate to the actual world? And the reality of it is, when it comes to like working 9 to 5s and stuff like that, it doesn't particularly translate any more than you just having a job with everyone else. But then this is the catch. You have to be accepted by everyone else that does that average stuff, and the only way that you're really truly accepted is if you're like them. Really, is if you're like them. I mean, you could like be expected to achieve great things through your difference, but if unless you actually like know what it is you're going to achieve, like unless you do that, then it's just kind of like you're not really going anywhere. You're just kind of just doing what everyone's doing. You're just doing something to pay a bill, and it's that work life cycle that is kind of like the work life cycle that I've kind of gotten exhausted from up until this point. It's that life cycle that is somewhat of a short term dilemma of mine, is being able to deal with it. Because before it was like, okay, I can deal with that life cycle. Maybe if you can get ahead of it, or maybe if you can get a stable enough foundation to where you're able to just constantly make money throughout your life, so you don't have to worry about the shorthand aspect of not having it. Then you also have that, so you say, okay, maybe I can get ahead of it. I'm in a situation where that, all of my, early, all of the earlier investment, that stuff that I was so eager to do when I was young, all the stuff that I was like, okay, I can't hang out and do this because I need to focus on my life. It's like all of that, I'm not ahead at this point. Even, and it's wild because even when I was doing that, I was kind of doing that on a sort of this is it kind of whim. So realistically speaking, it's not even just about 70. It's like if I'm gonna just do like the call it American thing. As a matter of fact, let me get some food before I mess around. I'm gonna need to be at like 100 and something K, and I'm not there. Um, and I don't really know of a way where at this moment I can like map out a path to that. Now there is the good old fashioned, um, if you just start working now, you're more likely to be in a better place tomorrow. As view of it, and that's nice and good. The work of today, improving the hope of tomorrow, and I'm all for it. It's just because I started I faced home because my first homeless experience, I was so young. I think I might have been 16 when I faced homelessness for the first time. Because my homeless experiences were from me being so young, I have so much experience doing that, and I just don't see that as I don't see that as being like the move. From my experience, what I did achieve that by doing that was I became working poor. Like my mentality towards doing that is living that way is nice. Is I mean is is what you have to do when you have to do that. But just living that way, like, isn't going to give you any other life other than that. Like, but see, here's the thing. It like, you could look at it like that's a life to live. I don't know, man. Like, people do it. On one hand, you could also look at it like, oh, well, it's better than being broke. You could look at it that way. My thing is this: eat when you're not broke. What are you doing with that money? Because that's the point that I've come to full circle with it. It's like, okay, it's better than being broke. All right, if I'm going to do this, what am I going to do it for? That's where I'm at with it, because I've done it so many times. There's been so many times in my life where I've been like homeless, and I remember like, this is exactly the order of events. Something would happen where whatever little stability I had, whatever weak little stability I had, it fell through. So because I only had one network of stability, because you can't like lean on people that you don't know, like as family and stuff like that. So my little bit of stability fall through, I end up homeless. Once I'm homeless, then I'll just be at rock bottom. So this will just be where I can't relate to anybody. I can't talk to anybody because, I'm just in such a bad place. And not only that, but I'm also dealing with a certain level of shame given where I'm at. So this right here is rock bottom. So I hit rock bottom. Then I'm like, okay, well, I can provide for myself. I can do this. I can do that. So then you get to a point of short-term goals and achievements. And then I'll say, okay, well, I need these clothes. I need these shoes just to be able to not be like dusty and bummy. So I need these clothes, I need these shoes just to not be dusty and bummy. So you'll be like, okay, I'm gonna get a job for this. And then you'll be like, all right, what's my plan for the future? Then you'll be like, my plan is to, find a way to make this much money. It's like, okay, what do you do? And so what happens is this: you'll get to the point where you'll need to buy a car. You'll get to the point where you need to buy a car. And see, here's the thing. Now, once you buy that car, at that point, you have to pay for insurance, you have to pay for gas, and you also have to pay for maintenance. And not just that, but you also have to buy the car. And so what will happen is the car will have a sticker amount. That sticker amount will be your goal. That goal will last you for maybe about a year and a half, however long it takes you to, get whatever you need to buy that car. And this is going to include your job's not working out, because let's be real, whenever you get these easily accessible jobs, they never last. So you have that going. And it's just like, once you get the car, then you pay the car note, and it's like, okay, what's the plan? The plan is like, okay, I'm going to have these things, right? So then it's like, you find ways that you work your way up to the point where you can pay rent. And so I'm not sure if you kind of notice how this works, but basically you just end up working your way up through bills. And the problem is, you don't actually get to the point of obtaining anything until you make a certain amount of money to obtain something. And that's granted, you know, you were able to um, make that money, but then also that you have like your eyes set on that sort of goal. I mean, you just gotta really be forward thinking, and there's just so much uncertainty and just instability with that. And so, you know, if you do manage to make it over there, then you'll get to the point of like, okay, you know, you pay for rent. And your ability to transition that into home ownership is basically your ability to to continue to make money. But the thing about it is, like, in order for you to own the home, you need on a low end $200,000. You got to be able to accumulate that. Your car to own your car, you need $30,000. And the thing about it is, most people don't even get to that point. And this is just because of all of the unpredictability of just the modern day. And also the fact of like really trying to like work your way through bills like that. If like just working your way traditionally through bills, the old approach to the American dream, it doesn't really work anymore in this day and age. Because you'll spend a lot of that time, like technically, if you look at it from like a budget perspective, you'll really be like operating above your means, like because you won't be quote unquote saving, you know, what you're supposed to be saving. And this is just because of the way things like cost of living are calculated, and like the way that they're calculated, like potential return on investments, the way that those things are calculated in the housing market. Because see, what happens is the people that like don't have these like dilemmas to worry about, like in terms of like rent and like paying insurance and all sort of stuff like that, they're able to put their efforts into like real into investment decisions. They can invest their capital into things that can give them money back. So while you're sitting over there paying all this rent, these people are investing in property that's giving them returns. And the property that they're investing on that's giving them returns, believe it or not, is the property that you're renting. So some of these rental property groups, they'll be like conglomerates, and these conglomerates will be investment groups, and so they're calculating what they're going to what is valuable within their investment. Like for example, you're looking at it like, all right, I got $200,000, I'm gonna buy a house. They're looking at it like, all right, I can invest. They're looking at it like, all right, I got $200,000. That will allow me to take out a $2 million loan. So any house, what house can I rent? Like, what can I do with like access to like this, you know, this $2 million? What can I do with access to these? Like, what are these people? What is the likelihood I'll get a return on my investment? And see, they're calculating their likelihood of getting the return on investment is your ability, likelihood to pay rent. And so what they do is, you know, based on the way the game works, you know, depending on where you get in, how you get in, when you bought the property and stuff like that, the game, it compounds over years. So property is bought and sold. Value is more so fortified. You're less likely to find a floor deal. You know, the market becomes saturated. The market becomes highly explored. You know, you're less likely to find this level of profit margin. maybe, you know, you're buying it from some company, you know, whatever it is, you know, because these, at this point, these people are using calculations trying to predict the market. So the way that they're buying, they're not necessarily buying with the immediate market in mind. This investment approach, it basically puts them in situations where they start using like calculating tools and stuff like that. And what they're calculating is they're calculating the average person's income and, you know, what they're willing to pay, what they can pay. And what ends up happening is they end up narrowing down like the cost of living to the point where it's just within like to the point where it's within a algorithm. So it's like when you participate in this, say for example, like you say, okay, I'll pay $1,500 a month. They know for a fact that $1,500, you're more at that rate, you're most likely to have just enough money to be like satisfied and stuff like that. And it's these situations that create people that end up working for their entire life, because it's like, and they end up paying rent forever and never end up owning anything because they never get over that hump. And it's because they're constantly caught up in that typical algorithm. You know, the algorithm in which they're predicting all these investments against. The algorithm in which they know about, you know, future construction that's coming to the area and how much that's projected to increase profit, land value, stuff like that. And furthermore, not only are they using these estimations to determine, you know, what your rate is going to be, but they're seeing them reaching those estimations as milestones. So their effort goes to realizing those high costs of living. I say that to say that even if elements and stuff like that were going in your favor, they would still find ways to hike those prices up. Whether they would use government assistance to sort of pad their tough periods, which is very common. Or, you know, they'll use, you know, aggressive internet marketing. Who knows what these people do? All I can tell you is for certain, you will be hard pressed to find a good deal. And this is just these things are not within regular reach anymore. So my mentality at this very moment, and this is real, is how can I put these things in reach? How can this be put in reach at this point? Because merely reaching is what I've done my entire life. Reaching out. Going here, doing this, reaching out. But it's never really got me anywhere. And I realized that what it really is past just working and having this job and paying these bills. Once you get past that and you get through that, you realize, and this is what I realized, that you got to be able to either establish a very strong, safe foundation wherever you're at, wherever you're earning money if you don't have wealth, or you basically are going to have to figure out some way to gain wealth. Now, here's the good thing about it. This is a positive note. There's a lot more money out there than the average person is given in the form of salary. It's just what it is. This is just something that you come to realize. There's way more money because you see these people out here. These people do scams and they make like. These people will do scams and they'll find ways to have millions of dollars. And the fact that they are able to get away with it, that money is not like, that oftentimes this money is not like tracked, is an indicator of how abundant it is. See, if there was not an abundance of money, counterfeiting money, scamming and stuff like that, it just wouldn't be able to fly on, on the radar. It wouldn't be able to stay off the radar just because money would be in such a it would be in such whatever scarcity that people would just be more in tune with it. Similar to like, women, attractive women. Like attractive women is single. You know how many people know this? These people know this stuff because they are, because the scarcity or whatever that they're experiencing. So just like that, you would be aware of like, okay, where is this money going? There's a lot of money. It's just the way the game is stacked right now, especially with the way housing is. It's really heavy. It's the gap between poverty and middle class rises to where it's just a lot more difficult to get. Somebody has to lose. More people have to lose because it's harder to win. And so more people on the other end of the game now, where they're renting out to other people to try to blunt the impact of the cost of living on them. So there are a lot of people on that side, and what it does is it hurts people on the bottom end because now people on the bottom end are more so getting squeezed out. What's the absolute most that this person is comfortable paying? They got this stuff calculated now because this is what they've had to use in their future projections to justify the the investment in the first place. Why would I invest 200,000 if how can I guarantee a 10% return on investment? So when it comes to employment, it's like okay, I could go work over there at the Jiffy Lube, but it's like okay, am I getting a car? Am I getting a house? Am I getting a network? And so what I realize is like that's really like what I take into account now when it comes to employment is like what is this? Is there a can this what is the vision? Like what's my vision with this? Like I'm realizing that that's way more important now. Like before I was able to just I felt as though like when it came to like high school and stuff like that, it was just like, oh well, let me just do this regular move. Then I realized in as time goes, these things, everything gets harder and harder and harder. So I'm just at a point where it's like, okay, not only do you do things, you work hard, you try hard, but now you have to plan hard. Now I realize that autonomy is very important when doing this. Like you really need autonomy to really sit there and like go through the process. Otherwise, you get caught up in that, instantaneous alpha beta action reaction, build, pay, bill, upgrade this. Next thing you know, this is where you just, you're like everybody else. And you just, if you don't have any wealth, if you don't have any, especially if you don't have a family, there's no way for you to really fortify security. So it's really more about you trying to figure that out. This is espresso steeped over 3 days. It is powerful. Drinking powerful espresso and then like water. Drinking powerful espresso and then water. So there's that. Is it really a crisis for me? No. Why? Because like I said, I graduated from college. I know most people couldn't have done that, especially the way that I did it. So for me, it's not like a matter of like self-confidence in this situation. So it doesn't really amount to crisis. Plus, it's like, after the pandemic and like living on the street, it's just kind of like I know where I stand with like most of society. So that also puts it into perspective as well. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if I really have to be out here like struggling in the streets, then unless I'm already sort of vested wherever I'm at, that's probably what the situation is going to be. So I don't really have this sort of level of like anxious. I don't feel anxious, of like not having something in the kettle burning at this exact moment. Because like that's the only thing I can really. I mean, now I have things that I'm doing. Like for example, I'm building a. Different. I'm working on basically how I'm going to do that. I'm thinking that through, and I'm working different things out. I'm preparing to fight. I have a computer. I'm going to have to drive at some point. I'm really, I'm an A&R. Like I'm really good at A&Ring. So there's a whole entire, thing there. So it's like if I can swim. I'm really good at helping people. So it's just like a matter of like making it all sort of work, or just finding a way to sort of push myself in that direction. Because at least that way I know that even if I am working nonstop or working to the next day, or if I'm, whatever it is, even if I'm making pennies, there are pennies that I could make in stride, not pennies that I will make under turmoil. In suffering, in an industry that it doesn't suit me. I'll be honest, like there was this one time where I got like really close to certain types of things that I thought I would be really interested in. And it's just like once you get like more involved with like a certain industry, you get to understand like what it really takes and what it really means. And you realize that like you just got to have a level of dedication with a lot of these things. And you just realize what's really for you. And so it's really just a matter of me sort of like getting to the right place with what it is that I'm doing. Because I can sit there and work for a fourth time in a row, but it's not going to change my situation in life. Any more than it has in the past. Here we go. Come on. And so I got moved. He's all right. But also have to plan this out. And I'll be honest, it would help if I had, like average life. I mean, it would make a huge difference. I would be able to propel like tremendously further, tremendously faster. And the reason I know this is because I've had this sort of support before. I'm just to a point now where it's kind of like I know that I can do it. I just want to make sure that I take my time and do the things that I do right, and I actually am able to really string it together, and not really string it together, but more so put everything together and make something of it because I'm approaching things that I hold closer to me, so I'm more comfortable with them. Like they're more, in my alley or whatever. But it's just like they're way more abstract, and I can't tell you that there's a sort of a clear cut way of doing them. And I know for a fact that there's nothing conventional at this point. Like I could do like some sort of internship that would like help me in terms of like getting these things done. So I have to sort of take an approach that is very difficult. But it's a true organic approach. It's just me coming to this idea is typically what like people like Mark Zuckerberg and stuff like that were able to do in their youth because they had autonomy, and this is something that I never had. Had I had this autonomy when I was younger, I think I would have been able to come to something similar, or I would have come to this understanding sooner. One thing that's kind of hilarious about vaping is like when you actually start like if you do manage to burn the cannabis, this system is just like it's like so much dirtier than when you vape it. So it's like in your mind, you're like, look at this dirty smoke coming through the system. And in real life, if you were like to smoke from a bong, that would be like average. So it's just kind of hilarious when you vape, like how you start getting to a point where you're just like particular about how the smoke is and stuff. So that's basically me when it comes to employment. I mean, there is the whole entire like working to have something to do. Being in Virginia, but I'll be honest, based on my work experience and like where I'm at now with things, and just when you get to like my point in life, they don't hire people like me to do like regular jobs and stuff like that. And a lot of them, like the average, like we'll call them the mainstream, is like they really try to push me at this point to do like trucking or something like that, and I'm just like, look, I spent a lot of my youth homeless, and no one said a word about trucking. And when they did, they made it seem like it was super hard. And to be honest, I was never supposed to be a trucker then. So how can I be this late in my life? How can I be one now? See, if I was a truck, if I was to have trucked when I was younger, been forklift and working in a lumber yard, I think I would have probably been in an accident because if and then this is a wild thing too because I'm actually I'm a tremendous driver, like tremendous driver. It's just driving like isn't like labor driving is not the same as like really it's like driving. Even if, for example, let's say, for example, from like a fantasy perspective, I'll be like a video game. Like, let's say, for example, let's say, for example, you'd be like a getaway driver. Like, let's say, for example, you're a getaway driver, like fantasy perspective, right? Being a getaway driver is not the same as being a like delivery driver, truck driver. Not the same. Not the same. You could almost turn delivery driving into driving. The only thing about delivery driving is, see, the driver derives just fun from like driving. They drive is like fun, but like driving is like work. It just things that drivers do, they just don't feel like work. Like, for example, if a driver, like, they could be made to be work though. Like racing, you could really look at someone's ability to race and like mark them down because they're not like fast enough to where you make that work. But like driving versus like driving a truck, like getaway driving versus driving a truck, like I would have had an accident. And just for the simple fact, I just don't have any business doing that type of work. Being on the highway, abut everyone. In a massive, unforgiving vehicle, like like you're driving, but you're driving and shipping. Like you're a part of shipping. So I can never do that. And I know like their reasoning. They're just like, all right, well, you could do that. This way, you don't have to deal with like people. You can just be isolated all by yourself or whatever. And I don't want that. I do not want that. I mean, I can just be homeless if that's the case. Like, for real. I mean, just living so isolated and like being so desolate. And I mean, I guess it is what it is. That, you know, you can make money, like, but one thing about certain things is like when it comes to like labor work, because that's labor, they get paid a lot, but believe me, that's not easy work. And if you don't, if you're not like, I mean, my labor time, my time of like real hard labor, like that's when like you're younger. But see, they're like, you can live in the truck though. You can live on the road. And that's something I do want to do. I want to go back to living on the road. But I want to live on the road right. So I got to figure out a way to make, you know, income and stuff. But you know, I can't do anything. It has to make sense. And it has to be substantial relative to what I would do. And so I have things, you know, that I have value that is substantial, but I have to cultivate it. But riding around in a truck, can't do it. I don't think I ever could do it. I mean, to be honest, I never even considered it because it was never something I ever felt as though I would have been able to do. I'm just not a trucker. I'm not. I mean, me being like me being a trucker is like me being country. Like it's something that's just you could try to apply it to me if you know see how it goes. You know, sometimes people, you know, they catch my vibe and you know they just want to be lame, so they sit there and try to say I'm country and stuff like that. It's like, all right, but me being country is like me being a trucker is like me being able to be that. And you know, speaking of you know just you know clearly speaking, I mean, like typically truckers typically are country. It's a very country occupation. I remember they were over there in DC and they were Marching on DC. They like. I'll say this though. They like me a lot. You know, I saw them on the DC lawn. Not the DC lawn. They were sitting over there and in front of the Washington Monument. All the truckers were coming down. They were protesting some recent changes that were applied to like gas wages or something. And I spoke with a lot of them, and they're really nice. And I really like seeing their culture is really cool. It's interesting how like it seems like they say they don't really make any money. But if I was gonna be a trucker, I would, have, a matte black truck that looked like Calypso, you know? But at the same time, that just goes to show you I mean, could you see me? Do you really see me doing that? Like, because if you do, then you could probably like like understand my mentality if I were to ever actually achieve that level of life. Like I just, I wouldn't truck. Now doing like delivery and stuff like that, I don't really mind that. Like something like local where you just kind of like, zipping around and stuff. Like that's all right. As long as you're not as long as it's not as long as you're not being constantly monitored. See, this is the thing about this trucking thing. Now, back then, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, like how I would crash, because it's not that I'll be bad at driving. It's just when your heart isn't into something and you do it and it's like hard, like it's just you're not naturally going to be good at it. You're going to come to points where you're going to be bad at it, and it's just because your focus isn't going to be on it, because it's just not going to interest you. See, when you're interested in something, you're able to apply a lot more like excitement towards it, so you're able to take in more information, you're able to perform, everything just comes to you more naturally and better. This goes with like sports. When you're interested in something, you're good at it. If someone could be like, oh, I'm not good at that, and like it'll be like they might be good at playing basketball, but then they'll say they're not good at playing ping pong. It's like, how is it that you can literally run, and jump and be good at that, but you can't like move a paddle? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it comes down to that, and a lot of it comes down to interest. So like with me, what would happen is like my interest would drop at some point. It would drop during some turn, like maybe I'm going to turn into some sort of a point, you know and I'll crash or something. I don't know. But one thing that's really 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 changed the way like this whole delivery thing and just certain things is they've taken a lot of the driving aspects out of it by implementing like speed monitoring, lane monitoring and all this other stuff. Like I get it, and they've had all these electronics to like do all this stuff and make sure people are safe and on time and also this. Okay, I get it. But once that really gets put into the equation, what it is now you can really see how like driving is more like it's very much labor. Like you are really just more so kind of like you push the pedal like this, and you know what I mean, you turn the wheel like that, and like you know what I mean, like you make sure this is off and everything is calculated, so your time is like start to finish. Like there's no way for you to really like just chill. Like you can't even chill on the pedal. Like you gotta, and then on top of that, like a lot of times they'll set you to where if people get the idea, like in those positions that you're like finding peace and stuff like that, they'll find ways to like make things bad on you, or like there's just certain cultural elements. Like people will just have real bad resentment, like all sorts of wild stuff, that you deal with, like dealing with people that are that are on that class is also something that's really just kind of like weird. Like, there was this one time when I did like this just basic delivery job, and like, it's just you just engage certain people that you engage, especially when you're like, through your experience in life and stuff like that. There are just so many different things that go into the equation, to where it's like driving. Like, that's the reason why if I was to be a driver or a trucker, I mean, it doesn't matter how much money it would have accumulated. At some point, I would have probably end up crashing. Like, if I were to have like this where they would have been like, "Yo, we're gonna give you $2,000 per trip, and the trip takes a week," and I was just like, "All right." And you could touch back down here, and like, you do whatever. Like, I would have that situation for like literally like 3 months, and then I would crash at some point, because once the money would get to the point where I really wasn't into it, then all of a sudden the speed monitoring would be way more difficult. The making sure that you do this would be difficult, and I know I would get myself in situations that would just drain me. And I know through some point of carelessness, I wouldn't be able to go. The only way I would be able to drive and like really, you know what I'm saying, like be like 100%, um, like efficient, proficient, and like on the move, is if I had some sort of like real reason behind. Like, for example, let's say for example I had like a kid, like I had a child I needed to provide for, or I had a family that I needed to make sure was safe. In that case, oh man, I'd be the best driver in the world. But it's just like, given the situations of like knowing like, okay, I can invest my life into something that I would like to do in life, or I can fulfill like my life purpose to the best of my ability at this point. That's bit And like knowing that I'm counterbalancing that, that is what will make something like driving not last for me, because I would just, my heart wouldn't be in it. I would just be like, I'm doing the wrong thing. Whereas if it's something where, like, for example, A&R, people could sit there and pay me. They could pay me. I could sit here A&R. I can A&R for snacks. Like, people could really like people could really give me food, and I can A&R for food, like, and be cool with it. Not really, but like, I say that to say that there's nothing stopping me from A&Ring, because there's nothing stopping me, because that's very much a real interest in my life. I really enjoy this. Now, driving is something that I enjoy too. Traveling, this is where traveling the country comes into the play, because driving across the country is like grand touring is the greatest life in the world for a driver. Whenever you see cars or whatever and it says GT, you know what that means? That means Grand Touring. A lot of people don't know what Grand Touring means. Grand Touring is people go 500 miles, 2,300 miles, 5,000 miles. I don't know how many miles is it across the country. This is Grand Touring. And honestly, living that way is great for a driver. You go fast when you go. Some days, depending on where you're at, you drive differently. Florida, you drive hard. You know what I mean? New York, I guess you drive cool or something. They drive cool. They race in New York too. You know what I mean? You got different car cultures everywhere. LA, you know what I mean? They got this whole entire, you don't know what's going on. Like, you racing, you flying around, meeting all these different, exotic people. So this is basically what driving is. This is basically my life. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do. But this doesn't align with driving an 18 wheeler. I can tell you that. And it doesn't align with driving a motorcycle. One thing that could do this, but this is just for an example, is like, for example, working at BMW or whatever. If I were to work at BMW, then that would bring me one step closer to realizing this. So for that reason, your interests and stuff like that, when you're sort of doing these things, would sort of give you the momentum to like further realize this as you sort of are in this environment. okay, I work at BMW and I'm just into like whatever. Who here knows about Grand Touring? Who here, knows about you know, um, who here knows about acquiring like trade like sales and trades to where I can sell and trade myself to the point of GTing. Like, who knows this? You see what I'm saying? But like, this is really what gets you through everything it is that you do, and eventually you'll be able to find out all this stuff because you're closer to that environment. It's almost unfortunate that I really wasn't able to really get into mechanical engineering for the effort that I put into it, because this is just one of these things that will get you through, you know not necessarily allowing, like, for example, I can speak to you about different like work environment things, and these are challenges that come with being a worker. But when you have like a real like direction in mind to like where you're going and stuff like that, you never experience these issues of being a worker, because your goals and like your vision is always going to keep you moving forward to where you don't get caught up in the monotony of just like, Monday through Friday, I'm here and I'm there, and I'll retire in 20 years. Like, you don't get caught up in that when you are like, this is like a vision I have for like my future. Like, let's do something like this is gonna be cool. Like, I want to be able, like, these are the people that have these shops, and they do whatever it is they do. Like, these people, you know, aside from the ones, they just figure out a way, and so this is kind of like where I'm at in terms of like my outlook on employment. And me just knowing like myself and the things that do this, that intrigue me in this way. um I know that I just have a lot of work to do. I mean, a lot of my writings, like, for example, like I have Xenon, and I was just realized I have there's two Xenons. There's the animation Xenon, which is something that I'm writing and showing right now, and then there's also um like Xenon, like the film that I'm working on, and it's like all live or whatever in images right now. So it's like in this sort of outlining process. But it's just like knowing like this type of stuff, and then knowing that like I spent my life working at like CBS. I spent my life, learning about some like field just so I can have a job. It's like gearing my mind into like that space and like trying to figure out what things I can do that are going to sort of like do something like help me in that way. Like doing like that, like thinking like that way, it takes it's just a lot for me, and I can't tell you that there's any sort of way effectively that I can guarantee a future for myself. There's no like practical, with for lack of a better word, approach I can take, in that direction. So it's just me like sort of like, working on the things that I can work on. I continue to write, so there's a lot of effort there. And then there's also just sort of like planning out sort of like a business structure around it, like, or whatever, even a planning out an approach, like, or just even like a direction for it, like just even keeping that in mind. That's kind of where I'm at with that. And I do this while I write, and it doesn't seem like I'm doing anything, because this is the level of effort that is associated with things that you're supposed to do. So this is, this now, that's just an example. And see, the thing is, this is just the context of my thinking. This isn't exactly what's determining my absolute decision making, but this is guiding my view of employment. I'm not looking at employment thinking that it's going to give me enough money to put a roof over my head. So I'm not limiting myself to like, okay, 90K, 120K. That's what I told them, you know, when things were going bad. I need 120K. Like, other than that, I don't know what this is about, because, like, this isn't the way of life. Because, like, based on the timeline of everything, it's like 120K at this point. Because, I don't want to just keep working like nonstop and just paying bills. I gotta get to a point where I can expand my life quality. I don't want to be put in debt just because I've never been on a cruise a day of my life. The first time I went to the beach, I was like 25, 27. The first time I ever saw the sand in the ocean, I was like 27 years old. I never even like seen like anything like this until I was like 27. So it's like understanding this, it's like I can't just be like doing this like nonstop work after facing homelessness through my youth all the way up until like now, to like go through it again, and then just to be like, okay, well, let me just run that same play. I'll be like I said in the past, I'll be damn near 87, running that play, and then I'll end up, dealing with, just it's like now I can finally go and go on a cruise the first time in my life. Like, I mean, not saying that that's what I want to do, but I'm just basically saying, like, when it comes to like your quality of life and like how you invest your time and energy, it's like if you're gonna sit there and shoot high, it has to be worth more than just running a treadmill. You can't just be like, okay, boom, bigger bills, cleaner life, boom, at it. Like, and then next thing you know, what is that? Years go by and you just been doing that without actually seeing any change in your life. You haven't actually had a chance to go anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't fathom it. And like I said, when it comes to money, it's like, what are you spending it on? Because if you're making it, you got to be spending it. So when you have a family, that defines your purpose. That's what your effort and focus is towards your family. That right there will give you more, way more than just me just being like, yo, one bedroom apartment, solo, you know what I mean? New bill, faster car. I mean, now here's the thing. These things are great when you can do them really in succession like that. But once again, this is a situation where you're really earning. So what else are you doing besides this? What are you doing when you're not high power earning? Well, you just got to figure out a way to, plan it out. Even if I were to sit here and be like, yo, what I'm about to do is I'm gonna go find some videos on passive income and take up all these e-commerce gigs or whatever, and like see how that goes. That is still a real thing. Like, that's a real thing. You could really figure something out like that. So, I mean, you could even do something like telemarketing. You could do all types of stuff. But, once again, you just gotta. For me personally, I'm just balancing it out with my autonomy. Am I okay? I'm doing all this telemarketing. Okay, $2,000. What's this $2,000 for? Because if I can't think of anything other than a car or some rent, then you see what I'm saying? Then what? Then okay, how is my mind being used throughout this time frame? Every single day, I'm over here running this script, and then I'm running this script, and then I'm just driving my car. 3 years just for that. So it's just like now it's like, okay, this is really where you have to consider what it is that what are your objectives, and not even just because of that, but also because of the things that I mentioned earlier. More people have gotten on the other side of the rental owner curve to where it's just really hurting everyone that's not owning. So it's just like, this is the divide that we have. Okay, you know. So in order to and that right there is just over the that right there is just that right there defines like quality of life, your ability to transcend that gap. Now you could either do it because you have strong networks. I don't have these things. But what I do have is I have a lot of capability. Before, what that translated to was, okay, well, I know if I'm capable of just constantly making money, then I don't have to worry about the fact that I don't have a lot up front, or just I didn't start with a lot. But now it's to the point where it's like, okay, now that I've realized all this self capability, that's what everything I did before was for. It was just for me to realize that I was capable. Now I have to actually apply it in a way that I can decide on my own. I decided to apply things the way I decided to apply things because my plan was to climb through the structure, because I came from a structure that wasn't so constant. It was just like people had houses, and just there was just a level of a of just there was just a consistency of life. Like having a roof over your head was not the maximum challenge. It just wasn't like you know such a pyramid. I'm just call it what it is. It wasn't such a pyramid scheme to like have like achieve like basic necessities of life. And this is where we're at right now: roof over your head, a car to drive, and like food, and then the ability to just live like a basic American reality. I never even considered it to be an American dream, but this is what I'm realizing that this is supposed to be, or whatever it is. But just to live like to have a middle class existence, better yet, put it that way. To achieve middle class, like what was considered to be average, is basically it can be a very difficult challenge. If it can be a very difficult challenge. And it's not necessarily a challenge that can be overcome by just working and just over time just getting to that place. I mean, get granted, jobs are way more willing to pay you more or whatever when you're older. So there's that. You have that going for you. But that's honestly at the whim of like the compassion of the individual. That like and see, this is something, whatever. Like I said, I'm not providing for a family. This like I'm at a point in my life where it's like, okay, I can pursue, this, like I said, I can pursue these things, so I'm just going to pursue them. This is what autonomy is for. I never had autonomy before. I was always like, oh man, I'm going to be homeless tomorrow if I don't go out and work. I'm gonna be starving tomorrow if I don't go out and do this. At this every moment. Now here's the thing: if it comes to that, then that's what it comes to, and I have a reason to do it. But like what I realized is like there also has to be a way of that being possible. And so understanding how that can be possible and like pushing that is like really where it's at. If that's what the objective is. Like me personally, like I said, I like to travel the country. Live on the road, not travel the country. I like to live on the road. So basically at this point, I'm just trying to figure out a way to make that happen. And understanding like the frame of mind. Like for example, being in Virginia, you have this very like, get a job, work, retire frame of mind. Other states and stuff like that, that frame of mind is not the same. Because that way of living is not always, realistic. So for me, one thing about adjusting my frame of mind is understanding that my primary objective is to live on the road. Understanding that, like, truly, is kind of like what really like guides my actions, and doing and understanding that too is what gives me is what will kind of like guide any decision I make. Like I remember there was just one point I was planning on being a carrier, like riding a bike and being a carrier. If you would have asked me if I would have been a carrier like 15 years prior, it wouldn't have made sense. But given the circumstances and what my objective was at the time, I was able, it was something that it was something that I was willing to do. So like this is basically the context that I think of like what it is I want to do now. Like I mean I can get a car, but where am I going? Because I want to live on the road. But here's the thing, I'm not gonna live in a van. I'm gonna live in a car. There are all sorts of stuff all the time. Here you are, you know what I mean? You touch your face. So yeah, whenever I cut my my hair, whenever I save those situations, and whenever I cut my hair, I'll assess the areas and I'll just be like, all right, well, let's see how easy it's going to be for me to break this skin, and how apparent the oil on my face you know is expressed. Because what happens is when you leave it unchecked, what will happen is you could end up breaking these situations just by just doing anything. Like you may wake up or something and just like scratch your face, or you may like lay down or something like that and like push something up against your chin, and the next thing you know, all this oil and stuff will be all over your face. And see, you could like clean it or whatever, but one thing you'll notice when it's really bad is you can't really clean it off. Like you'll clean it, but underneath whatever you cleaned, it'll just be kind of like oily and just real oily. And you take a shower, and if you don't really take the time to really like, do a proper cleaning, you'll realize it won't go away. And it's in these instances it'll be subtle. It'll be very subtle, and it'll be just this light subtlety that'll make it to where you could go months, and then before you know it, you have a real problem, because it's just for what it seems like it's going wrong. Way more is going, like it doesn't seem that bad, but it's like you'll realize that the longer you let it sit like that, the worse it got. Another thing I want to talk about is smoking. During depending on like where I'm at with things, I do kind of experiment with like not smoking, especially given the fact of how much I kind of do. I mean, even though I'm at this point where I'm quote unquote vaping now, I always cut back on these things just to take note of like my state of mind and my actions. And one thing that I have noticed lately during these periods is that I just have way more energy and I'm not really as tired and drained. I just noticed lately when I've been vaping slash smoking, I've been really drained. Case in point, like in Tekken, I got a lot of great work to do. Like I finally got myself to a point where a lot of like the my cards are kind of where I'd like them to be. It's just I don't really have a lot of motivation to like actually like go and just push myself in the game. And it's just because I just been really tired. Now me personally, I'm always up at awkward hours anyway. So for me to be like for me to like stay up past like 10 o'clock, for example, like typically I'll go to sleep like early from what most people think. I'll be like asleep. I might even go to sleep at like 6 o'clock. But see, the thing about it is I'll wake up at like 1 o'clock in the morning and I'll stay up from like 1 o'clock to 3 or 1 o'clock to 4. Or for example, I'll go to sleep at 6, but I'll wake up at like 4 in the morning. So it's like when you wake up at 4 in the morning, like when your day starts at 4 in the morning, like it's really nothing to like go to sleep at like 6 o'clock. The thing is this: when you don't have like energy to do things that like you would like to do, and you find yourself in the bed, and you find yourself really just really enjoying like sleeping in the bed, like you just in the bed and you just fan on and it's great or whatever, and you just you're like up but like you're just still laying down for a really long time. Like if your diet isn't on point, that's one state that you could be in, like not knowing. Because I look back at my childhood, there were times when I was like really on that, but that's not the case for me now. And I realize a lot of it has to do with like the smoking slash vaping or whatever it is. With what I'm smoking and vaping, because I realized like when I was smoking like the the double OG for like the 3 weeks, I was just mad sleepy. And the thing about it is, I really know that I'm oversleeping when my mind gets set into depression and I have no reason to be depressed. And I notice myself teetering on that lately. So I'm just to the point now with the smoking where I'm kind of like, I'm going to just go ahead and just, pull back. All right, mom, chill out. Also, with the boxing ring being closer and closer, I mean, it's only natural to do. Now, see, the thing about me doing this is the fact of I'm really training hard at the same time. So it's like my body really is exhausted though. That's the only part about it is like my body really is tired. Like for example, typically like in the morning, I'll run a quarter mile or a little over half a mile. I'll run somewhere between a half a mile and a quarter mile. But this is the thing: I'm running like I'm sprinting a quarter mile, which is not the same as like jogging a quarter mile. Definitely not this nowhere near walking one. So I'm like, first of all, I gotta sit here and like warm up for this. You know what I mean? So I gotta like go through a couple of laps. And then on top of that, I gotta like power through it. So I'm like powering like really like trucking for like 3 minutes straight, doing this quarter mile, and it's a side hill quarter mile. So I run up a hill half the way and down the hill the other half. So I'm like really challenging my my legs drive strength against gravity. This is what I'm doing. So and it's like when I get done with this, then on top of that, I do 150 sit-ups. So I'm doing that like right now at this stage of my conditioning. So it's like I'm doing this every day. So I mean, yes, this is exhausting me. This is really like exhausting me. Just that in and of itself. Because today I didn't do that because it's Friday and I just knew that I wasn't gonna really have the go for it. So I decided to let myself rest. I mean, I've been doing this regimen for the past 3 days, and this is the first week of me doing it at this capacity. So where I'm sprinting I'm sprinting about a half a mile, and I'm doing about 150 sit-ups. So today I'm just like, okay, well I've done this consistently for about 3 days now. Let me just go ahead, take a small like micro break. But here's the thing: it's midday and I'm not sleepy. Like, I'm not ready to like crash and go to sleep. You know. So I say that to say that like I really recognize how that coincides with smoking that makes me tired, but I can't be tired like this because it takes away from my energy towards things I have to do in the immediate. Like it helps keep me on track, like in terms of like long term. But when it comes to like the immediate, what it does is it really will fatigue me in the immediate. It'll make me want to preserve more energy, and it's not bad. It's not bad when that's something that I actually need to do. It's just when it's not something I need to do, it's counterproductive. It's one thing like when I'm in a situation where it's like, okay, I might as well chill out because I'm dealing with time constraint or certain things take a certain amount of time. But it's another thing when I have like objectives, like for example, fitness objectives, and I just really need motivation to do that. Like 3 weeks ago, I was really ready. I was really ready to swim these laps and take things further. However, 3 weeks ago, relative to how strong I am now, I was nowhere near as strong as I am now, and it's wild when I take the time to consider it. But every every like prior to this, every time when I was like, okay, I'm getting closer to fighting shape. I'm almost ready to fight. It's just wild because the longer I just kind of like have gone on, the stronger I've become. Not like overall, which is kind of unfortunate. Like there will be times when I'm lighter and I have better agility, or for example, when I'm like a little bit more conditioned and I'll have like a different type of wind. But I'll tell you, or like for example, where I'm not as where my body is not as stressed, I don't feel as tight. Like right now, I feel really tight. My legs are really tight from all this running, this hard running. Like I'll be honest, when it was just a quarter mile, it was one thing to like run that. But now that I'm to the point where I'm doing half miles, like my legs really feel exhausted, as if I've been like heavy lifting. And so I'm at a point now where it's like for my conditioning to go further, I have to lose weight. And just being tired like this, it's just I can't, it's just not really working. It's not really, working with what I'm doing. It'd be one thing maybe if I was like trying to get stronger and I was like heavy lifting and I was like working on power. But I'm all right when it comes to power. When it comes to power, I'm good on power. I spent a lot of time working on power for a long time because growing up, I never had powers. So, like for example, like when you're a kid and you're coming into adulthood, that's really what the dilemma is. It's power because you're just small and like you just don't have like your body is nowhere. It just can't really be as developed as it is when you're an adult. Plus, on top of that, you're more lightweight in your body density. You have a way lighter body density, so you just don't really have like as much. In order for you to have power when you're small, you have to have really pristine technique. You have to have really good technique, and you have to combine that with speed, and those two things that will generate power. But like when you get when you become like older, you develop power also through strength because you can really develop you can really um, grow your strength because you're able to like you have like the time or whatever, like your weight density is heavier, so like you just plus you also just have more familiarity with things. So and on top of that, you just have more time to build power, so you can build power with conscious effort. So I spent a long time like working on power, you know and so I'm at a point now where it's like I need to lose weight because I have all the power in the world, but the one thing that I don't have is speed and endurance. And see, the one thing about like running this little half a mile and my legs hurting and stuff like that is that for me to run a half a mile and be at a lightweight, at a lightweight, um, at a light natural weight, it wouldn't wear me down nearly as much. It wouldn't wear me down half as much. See, when you're overweight, especially in boxing, boxing is a sport where it really pays to be underweight because when you're underweight, endurance is a lot easier to sustain. It's a lot easier to sustain stamina and endurance. And stamina and endurance are very crucial in boxing. It's interesting because they're just as important as power. Like stamina, endurance, and power is just like speed. These attributes are so valuable, and they're so much easier to refine when your body weight is low. The only problem with going into lower body weights is just energy levels. It's just you're not eating, so your energy is typically going to be low too, because you don't have like all of the you're not eating all this super high calorie stuff to keep you kind of like zooted and stuff. You could do caffeine because that's not really gonna increase your body weight, but even that only works so well. So just being able to sustain energy when you're sort of like going down in weight is a big challenge. So I can't really be smoking. For that reason, also because you got to be able to, you have to have your breathing functionality. And so I just don't need to be drained. With where I'm at this stage where I know I have to lose weight. I think I gotta get down to like somewhere. I gotta get down to like 180, 185. Just so I can sort of like float at 185 and this way, I can go down to 180 and like fight at 180 because that's really the way you want to do it. You want to fight at a light weight. This way you don't take and especially in the beginning when you know that you're like better at fighting or whatever, then you could go up and weight. But that's going to be your safest case. That because the heavier you go, the thing about it is a person can be bigger. That doesn't mean a person's body can take more. Just because someone's bigger, it doesn't mean they can handle more damage. But unfortunately, when someone being bigger usually means they can give out more damage. So if you're going to fight someone in the beginning, you want to fight them lower in weight. You want to fight in the lower the weight you fight, the less of the less harsh it is on you. Also, the faster you are, and also the more you have more endurance. And this is because moving around is easier. You don't weigh as much. And you'd be surprised how much like 5 pounds really makes when you're around a really healthy natural weight. So yeah. just get myself into a shape where I can just perform. Perform well. And see, the thing is, you know, just get myself to the point where I can just perform. So I don't really need to be smoking. One thing I wanted to speak on is also dating before I kind of get out of here. Not for any other reason other than just to share my thoughts on it, just because I don't really speak on it on record. I've never spoken on it lately, you know. But I do think about it from like the perspective of I know it could I know like from different perspectives it could be like, oh, you could date and anything like at any point in your life you could always like date, right? I just don't want to do any sort of like online thing just because the online environment is just kind of weird. Like it's just really just like really strange. I just don't like that. I realized that like there are certain people that you could like never meet in the real world because you would never be in the same places no matter what happens, no matter how good things are going for you or no matter how bad things are going for you. However, like with online dating, what will happen is you're more likely to cross paths with people that you would like never like ever cross paths with. And so it could just really create like a really weird like recipe. That along with the fact of like when you're just kind of doing that, it's like, what are you really doing that for? Like, are you trying to get married or something? Like, or are you trying to quote unquote have fun? Because I don't really know. if there's really like, I don't know. I think like organic life. I just find the quality of it to be a lot higher, and I don't know. I could never really see myself like online dating at this point. Like one thing that like a lot of people may not know is like whenever you're watching like movies and stuff like that on the internet, and this is something I've come to a realization of. Whenever you're like on the internet and you're like watching like these like explicit like videos and stuff like that, what you have to understand is what you're really watching is you're watching the service industry. So what these people are doing is they're usually paying these people money to do these things. So like typically they'll be like a part of some sort of like whatever it is network where they they pay money and then these people come and do these things. So it's like with that in mind, it's like what are you really online dating for? You know? Like, are you doing it because you want to talk to someone? I mean, you could do it with that in mind. You know what I mean? But another thing I've realized is like just through simply watching that, I really don't feel like dealing with I just don't. I just don't really. I don't really feel like going through the internet for that. You know what I mean? Like it's just not that. It's just not at that level. Like I said, there are people that you will really never cross paths with when it comes to online dating. And one thing you'll realize about like online dating, and this is no discredit to anyone who does online date, it's just that this is something that everyone who has online date knows is that there are some people that like their quality is like so low, like the only way that you would ever even like interact with them is like online. It just is what it is. Like there's some people like you would never even like even cross paths with them unless you're online. And it's just like when you like know people through online, it's like I don't know. Also, but to and it's like almost in like some way too. It's like online is like it is very much like also like a part of like the modern process. It's like online. Like but at the same time, it's like, is it really like like when you're like quote unquote dating, like are you really like adding someone on Facebook because you went out on a couple of dates with them? Like, no, you're not. But at the same time, like what is your end goal? Is your end goal that? Because I mean, if it is, I mean that's cool too. You can use online dating for that. But I don't know. From what I remember, like when I really was actually able to get in the swing of things, and it's wild because there was a time like it just took me forever to get in the swing of things. But I remember when I finally did get in the swing of things, What I realized what was happening was like I remember there'd just be so many nights where I would be so tired because I'd be up like 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to do this online, dating thing. And it's just like you be up at like 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, and it just be such a transaction, because you're dealing with people that like you don't really know. So it's like when you know that what people in these videos are doing is basically they're just pretty much just paying for this service. And then you just kind of think to yourself, like, if that's truly what your objective is, like, what is your objective? You know? It's like from that perspective, it's like online dating kind of does kind of work, but it's like, I don't know. I don't know. Aside from that, like, what are you really trying to do? Because I just can't see myself going through all the process of like the whole online process. When I can go through like a real life process. I can really go through a real life process. Is it going to be kind of like difficult when I go through the process of trying to establish communication? Maybe so, but I mean, sitting there swiping and stuff like that. See, that's the only problem. See, because there's like so many like low quality people with the swipe situation, you're just more likely just to like run through some different challenges when you think about like it being like an online profile and stuff like that. To whereas like when you see someone in real life, there's just different hurdles you can kind of manage. It comes with drawbacks, but it also comes with a lot of overarching better things. Like for example, a person that you meet in real life could be online dating like people they've never even met, and you can establish a stronger point of communication with them than those people could have ever had just because you've already seen them in real life. So there's that in it of it, and there's also just simple fact of this is real life. These are things that are constantly happening in real time, so it's like why not take advantage of them that way. And I also realize that when I perceive things that way, what it does is it kind of puts my perception in I think a place of like healthy sort of like like reality check, like if you don't have the guile to like do to introduce yourself and explain something, or to um, achieve whatever communication like calmly, then you're not prepared for doing that and really what you need to do is if that's really something that's a priority for you, then you should at least have the determination to just do things the hard way and not be like some type of trick out here. And so that's kind of like my outlook on it. But as far as it being like a priority or whatever, like something that needs to be done or something I think is going to help me out, because I don't think it'll particularly help me. I can't particularly put like a price tag on it. No pun intended. but I can't really justify it as being something that's like urgent or something like that when I kind of like know everything about it. So it's not necessarily like, I mean, there is sort of like um, self-esteem boosts and stuff like that. But I mean, what is that when I actually have objectives and things like that? When I could do those things and achieve just as much satisfaction. It's like one road, can be traveled. And hey, if this is something that needs to be done, it can be done. But trying to invest my energy in it through online dating, I don't think is the move. I think really putting my energy into working towards like my objectives and stuff, I think that's really what it is. Like this boxing gym, if I'm gonna lose some weight, then I'll lose some weight. I was just thinking the other day, like when I do, I am sitting here getting conditioned and stuff. But one thing I'm not doing is like taking off my shirt and like making like thumbnails for like YouTube and stuff like that. Because this is truly what I'm doing. Because this is something I know that is truly my purpose in life. This isn't something I'm doing because I'm trying to sit here and achieve the benefactors that come with it. Those there are aspects of it that are that, but that's a part of what comes with your purpose, no matter what it is. Your purpose in life could be fishing, and then you could find ways to determine, all of these things that come with fishing that are just so great. Like you might like boats or something. Who knows? Like, but these are these things. So this is kind of like my mindset towards like a lot. I know that a lot of like simple-minded people kind of see it as the beginning all and end all of like your existence. But my reality of it is that I don't have a family, so it's not like me just simply dating is like the move. However, there also is this mentality of like if this isn't going on in your life, then your life just isn't cool. And I mean, I get it, but at the same time, I just got things that I gotta do, and what comes, what comes with where you're going is really what's more important. Because you could sit there and shift your mind, and it'll totally disalign your priorities. Like there's certain realities and aspects of certain things that I realized that I just we're just so far behind on. But at the end of the day, I'm not sitting over here concerned about my ability and my disability thereof, whatever it may be. But see, this is one of the good things that comes with having a mentality of like you can just deal with things in the real world because you can make sure that when you do things that way, that you have more like a healthy mind state. Whereas I will admit though, communicating with someone just through messages is actually a really good exercise. It's a really good exercise for like your ability to like with like social skills and stuff like that. But one thing that I found, and like this is like just a little side note, is that you can actually exercise those strengths when it comes to communicating with anyone. Like for example, if you're communicating with anyone, especially if you're doing it in a professional capacity, like you can learn efficient communication through practicing communication through working on your social skills, like what I'm doing with this. So I say all that to say that I think all of it comes together all in one. But like my outlook on it at this moment is just kind of like there have been so many times in my life where I've been more or less like outcast or just sort of like disposition where I've been in bad situations. And I remember in those times, like I always was like, man, like I wonder if I, have a girlfriend or something like that at some point. And later in my life, there were times when those times had came. But looking back, I can't say that I feel the same way now that I did in those times before. When I was like, there were times when I was like 20, dealing with homelessness. I'd be like maybe like 22. I think I might have been like 23. What I mean? I think I might have been like from like 22. No, I think probably from 17 to probably 19. There were times when I was on the street, and then there was times from like 24 to like 27 where these years had gone by, and I was just like, oh man, like what is going on? And then I just remember like those I would eventually have those experiences, and this is where I'm at now, to where it's like for me to kind of go through like go like, to for me to be like, okay, I'm just gonna like I'm out here. It's been like 3 years and I haven't really been doing too much of nothing. To say that I would have like that level of like disparity now, I don't have that now at all. In fact, what I do now is more so intentional. Whereas like before, I felt like totally unworthy. I remember like I was just like on the street and like I was down so bad, like from what I thought I should have been. That like I just didn't have the confidence to like do like or speak and all this other stuff. It's like now that's not even a matter of I didn't have confidence. I didn't even have experience. Where it's like now I have way more confidence and more experience, which on the grand scheme of things, I'll admit it's not really a lot. But it's not to the point where I feel like disabled or like I feel as though I'm sort of short, I'm dealing with some sort of shorthand of life. It's just more so to where I understand the weight of something going into it. And just because it's not something that's readily available to me doesn't mean it's something I should go out of my way to try to make accessible. And I realize that even my interest towards that is very low because at the end of the day, I just look at it as to like what it is, what I get out of it. And I realize that merely just like pursuing or like or just going into a direction just for the simple sake, it's just like when you understand that like these videos are people that are paying, then you just gotta you got it really puts you into consideration with like your mentality about your lifestyle in general. If you're not compelled to do something, then there's no reason for you to do it. But for the sake of if your goal is to simply stay busy, then you know I can't see that as something that I can make a priority. It's not something you can make a priority. And one thing I realize about life is it's never something that should ever be a priority. And for more reasons than one. But that's the best way to deal with that. And that's my thoughts on that. It's not you're not hiding and ducking, but at the same time, you're not running and jumping. But what you are doing is you're doing what what you need to do, and you're just doing what you have to do to be strong, and that's really what it's about. What you can do to be strong, what you can do to improve every day. So me cutting back on smoking, me running this, running these laps, me preparing for this ring, however I'm preparing for it. This is the reason why I'm able to derive so much satisfaction from it because I know that at least I'm investing in something that's more more intention, more what I need it to be. But yeah. And that's how I find the energy to fight. The energy to cut my hair and make sure that I look right. I mean, I'm not exactly doing this because I'm about to, stroll the boulevard, But this is my purpose in life. So this is really where I get most of this from. See, for example, like for me to do something that's like not my purpose, if you like aren't achieving these things, like if you're not achieving, let's say for example, whatever objective you have with these women are, then it can put you at a point where you feel like what you're doing is pointless. And it can just really discourage you. It can really make it hard. But when you were able to derive more from it, you're always able to find motivation to keep going, to keep growing, and to keep staying strong. And if it's anything I've learned, if it's anything I've learned at all, is that if you're going to spend time doing anything, it should be trying to figure out what your purpose is and pursuing that. Because by pursuing that, everything else will manage to work itself out. And that's where I'm at. This playlist right here, this is called Downtime. It's good for just relaxing and just chilling out. And it's just something I put together with this effort, and I just keep trying to do different things. Whether it be editing a video today, recording something I think is artistic tomorrow, just trying to get my ideas out of my mind. But yeah, I do think about, working a job and just so I can get a car or whatever. But I realize I got to think it through a little bit better. So that's dating, that's the future, that's employment, that's smoking. The last thing is boxing, which I kind of spoke on a little bit. Where I'm at right now with it, it does seem to be like I did kind of speak on that. When it comes to boxing, I just got to be able to fight people in my category. Whatever that means, even if it means them trying to whatever someone like me can be able to fight, I gotta be prepared to fight that. So basically, what I've done and what I'm doing is I'm just putting myself in a position where I'm prepared for that. I realize what that means, and prepare for that. I don't really talk about nothing, but I do really overall, I will say like where I'm at with it, I just realized that I got to make sure I have my cardiovascular together. Um, so I can, have endurance and stuff like that. And really, that's really my priority with the conditioning right now. Just endurance and losing weight. Getting down to 185. Right now, I'm like 197. So getting down to 185, um, having endurance is more than enough for me to have agility and strength. So I know when I'm there, I'll be fine. At that point, I'll be able to focus really more on throwing punches. I'm just not at the point of throwing punches right now. I'm not at the point of like really jumping rope right now because I'm overweight. So by strengthening my legs with this running, I'm really working on the endurance, and it just kind of works really well with losing weight because it's running is just really good for burning calories, and like really pushing your legs is good for that too. So I'm kind of doing this, and I'm also getting ready to swim. So swimming is kind of a milestone of it. But see, the thing about it is, this is the reason why swimming is so important. Is because when you fight, and you're getting hit and you're throwing punches, one thing you have to do is you have to be able to hold your breath. So, and the reason why is because when you hold your breath, what it does is it strengthens your core, so it makes it so that you can, for example, you can twist at the hips faster. And so you don't necessarily have to hold your breath, but what you do have to be able to do is, for example, this is an example. So if you notice, like when you talk, when you make the movement, you'll be like, huh, 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 like that, right? That's like your diaphragm. So like when you're talking, one thing you will notice is that when you increase the stress, you go like that, right? That's your core. So what you have to be able to do is you have to be able to firm your core so that there's not so much variable. So there's not so much variable motion in the movement. So it's almost like, you see what I'm saying? And so like that's where that noise comes from, is your ability to sustain your core and like that. So this is why swimming is really important, because when you're swimming, what you're doing is you're strengthening that diaphragm. So you're strengthening like your breathing diaphragm. And so really, when you are like in close quarters in a fight, in you're breathing, but because you could possibly get hit, because you're bracing to get hit, your breathing is more shallow. So in order to really box, you got to be able to go like the entire round, almost not even really breathing, if you're going to go through the round being in the pocket. So by being able to swim, what you're doing is you're strengthening that diaphragm and your ability to breathe that way. By running, you're strengthening the depth of breath, and you're also strengthening your legs. When you're boxing, you're like this, and like you're just like you're move like if you like for waist movement, you just got to be able to control your breathing. Also, you got to have a strong midsection. So the 150 sit-ups is for that. And so by me understanding that like I'm weak in these areas, I know for a fact that for me just to go into fighting without actually strengthening these areas, it would just be kind of like a critical mistake. It could be managed. It just makes you softer going into the situation. So you're just more vulnerable to really bad things. Like also you're vulnerable to body shots. And in order to really take a body shot, you have to be able to breathe shallowly, because in order to brace your core, you can't really be having a whole bunch of like loose air and everything just all relaxed and cool. You gotta kind of just you gotta be easy, like you gotta be easy, like, but you have to be braced, like you gotta be braced to take a punch. If not, a body punch can knock the wind out of you real easy, put you down real easy. Or what will happen is, let's say for example, you take a lot of damage in the body, your body could be real tender to where your muscle will spaz and it'll shut down. So you got to have a strong midsection, but you also got to be able to control your breathing diaphragm. And so that's really kind of where the swimming comes in. So where it's basically like, if you can't really have like a good strong basic foundation in boxing, it's strong, but if you can't really establish a strong core in that, then I don't want to say you might as well not fight, but you should at least, you might as well lose a lot of weight, because you're not going to really be able to maintain. So it's like that, and being overweight and then not being able to run is the reason why I don't right now jump rope, and I don't do a lot of bag work and stuff like that, because all of that stuff can come, all that stuff comes with getting in the ring. But if you don't have like that good breathing and that, you know what I'm saying, that proper weights, and you have endurance and stuff like that, it's like, are you really boxing, or are you trying to just get in a quick brawl to where you're going to be breathing all hard and stuff like that? See, I'm not doing that. I'm not going in there to be like, these people that, typically never really been in a fight. They'll get through like half a round and they'll just be breathing all hard, and next thing you know, there's no power behind nothing they do and stuff like that. I understand I gotta really be able to box, so it's like building from the core up. It's kind of where I'm at with it, So that's that. But anyway, that's pretty much it for this one. It's almost 1:30. I got my boxing goals. I got my, making up my bed in the morning. I got my, outlook on smoking. I kind of, my mentality about the future kind of is where it is, and my thoughts on employment and stuff like that. I'm full circle with that. I just wanted to take some time in this one to stream, sort of like reflect on a few things, work on my social skills, and think a few things through, like dating and stuff like that. Do it in front of the pad. But with all that said, what I like to do at this point is I like to like point the direction on something else that I'm doing, so that I'm not like abruptly just ending the video and just, trying to figure out a way to not make that awkward. So one thing that I wanted to point out, one playlist I want to point out is actually see, I don't want to give this playlist out because this playlist is on a different channel. But I'll say in this one, I'll shed light on my magic playlist. My magic, it's my jazz, my smooth jazz playlist. So if you like really relaxing, nice, easy going commercial music, jazz, perfect jazz, then you should check out my Magic 105.9 playlist. I'm really happy where it's at right now. It's at 2.5K views, and that's a lot for me. And I'll go ahead and put that on the end screen, as well as this playlist, which is actually downtime. That'll be on the end screen also. So anyways, that's pretty much it for this one. That's my time. And I'll catch you when I do. Peace.